Yeah, I need a few things explained to me. I don't understand how these are coincidences. Yeah, ma'am, I'm gonna go full tinfoil hat right now. Okay. I wake up this morning and like I leave the TV on, like I said. So I start hearing the news reports, and there's some kind of radioactive lake in Florida. And I said to myself, "What? I've never heard of such a thing." But what do I hear? Radioactive lake, Lake, Florida. Then evacuations, potential environmental disaster, Tampa Bay. And I'm just like, wait a minute, they're talking about it again. Let me see something because the news has been so little on this.
Morning, let me run you through this worst case scenario is if the reservoir does burst. It's not just the 300 million gallons of water. That was the last check we got of how much is in the leaking reservoir that barrels into the community over my shoulder, but it also destabilizes the two ponds that are right next to that one. Collectively, those hold about 400 million gallons of water. So, Craig, depending on how much they've drained it so far overnight, we could be looking at 600 to 700 million gallons of water flowing right through this neighborhood over my shoulder. Now, this is the evacuation zone. Goes about a mile. Turning back to their
300 homes.
maybe finding flooding there with primarily salt water, but also byproducts of phosphorus mining. That is kind of
What
important
in
during
the
this
hell? Look,
contract. In addition to all of this, Craig, there was also a natural gas facility
natural
overlooking the
gas. Oh,
southwestern
good.
zone, connected to a
Wonderful.
745-mile-long network coming through the Gulf of Mexico and providing gas to people all over the state of Florida. Millions
You
could
know
be
what?
affected if that floods. Most of this country's phosphorus
Let me
comes
say
from
what I
the
gotta
state
say
of
in a minute.
Florida.
Why I'm saying why is this a coincidence? January 20th was the day, right? Doesn't seem that long ago. Now we've got this. We had the situation in Texas, which I know I harped on, but to me that was so out of the ordinary and such a big deal. And the news media at first was not acknowledging the big deal, just like I'm sitting here right now feeling like, oh my God, what's going on with this water? I felt the same way when they said it was going to be freezing cold in Texas and the power went out. There are these massive situations happening in the last little while. First in Texas, now in Florida. Texas and Florida, the last bastions of freedom where people have gone against the mask thing, people who have tried to flee tyranny from other states have been like, I'm moving to Texas, I'm moving to Florida. And magically, in the last couple months, they're both struck with an extraordinary situation, an unheard of extraordinary situation. Now, you could call these natural disasters, you could call these, acts of God. I guess you would on your insurance forms and stuff like that. But the response and the way things are dealt with, like I said, we're hearing about it. There's local news report, and so it's coming through the Today Show. These to me are the kind of crises that I feel as a president you would want to be like, I'm handling it. And like I said, nobody did that for Texas. I think they started acknowledging Texas a few days later after a bunch of people froze. Okay, instead of handling it so that people would not freeze or so that people would have clean water, because you remember the water was a problem in Texas. Did that get fixed? I guess everything's back on and running because it's warm. I don't know what happened. I don't know how they're doing. But now we have radioactive water. Some kind of reservoir holder. I don't even understand how you do that in the first place. Okay? Magically, like I said, I'm not a genius, but magically I do know something about contaminated water. We got a lot of that crap up here. What do they call those? Something sites. Anyway, there's sites that the government has designated because they're full of bad stuff. Oh, here's PCBs because what we had factories, yeah, in the old days, and the factories used to have their chemical drip offs and stuff and just toss them in the dump or let them go because these factories were also near the water. It's something fun sites, super fun, something sites where they're not protected. There's something about them where they're supposed to be cleaned up. They don't get cleaned up because I don't know if people don't know how to clean them up. I used to say to myself, why can't people get a bunch of scientists and come up with an antidote to whatever the chemical is in there, and just mix the antidote and clean up the place? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but if there's antidotes for other things, why can't you make an antidote for whatever chemical thing you're dealing with? I don't know. Maybe it'll blow up the world. But, okay. So what do you do in situations like that? You cover it. Or you do something else. Now, this is water. So, I'm saying to myself, well, why didn't they dump soil in it or something? And I'm remembering, this is so funny. Like I said, I don't know stuff from being smart. I know stuff from watching TV and movies and crap. First thing comes into my mind, I think radioactive. I think of when Saeed on Lost was explaining why there would be so much concrete somewhere is because, I guess, after Chernobyl, this is what Saeed said. I don't know if he was telling the truth, that the Russians just poured concrete on everything. So, you got a thing of water and it's contaminated. Why not just dump concrete in there? I mean, not, mixed up concrete, just the dust. Put the concrete, powder in there and let it mix itself. Why is that even sitting there like this? But because it's sitting there like this, how does it suddenly magically it shifted? Countless earthquakes going on in this world right now, right? Okay. It suddenly shifted and therefore it's leaking. Again, why not all the concrete headed down there to just... What's the other thing? Yeah, when you have a flood, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to put sandbags. Sand, concrete, anything so that you would have... Because if that's just sitting there, I think they're saying it's from an old mine. It's not from a new mine, right? So how is that sitting there just waiting to cause this problem? And how does this problem just suddenly happen? There's no plan. Where's all the people who are supposed to just be able to snap into action? Should we call Putin? Will he handle it? Will he just say throw some concrete in there? I know it wasn't him at the time, but you understand what I'm saying? Why is this happening? I'm saying to myself, isn't Tampa Bay the place where the worst thing they were concerned with getting contaminated was Tom Brady throwing the Lombardi trophy in it? Now, you got this problem? And it just so happens that we have these two extraordinary, unheard of problems in two places that were strongholds for Republicans. Strongholds for people who want to remain free. Strongholds who are trying to resist the new normal that's to come, where everybody has to wear masks, everybody has to do somebody's bidding. I still don't know who that somebody is. That's just a coincidence somehow. And when there's something happening, everybody's just talking about it and there's not an immediate response from the government in either case. Everybody would attack a president saying they didn't take care of the people who didn't vote for them or something like that. Once again, I don't know what Joe Biden's doing. I don't know if he's running the country. I don't know. He can't handle his dog. I don't know if he could handle his children. Because we have the one who I think admitted that that's probably his laptop. I read something that said he was like, oh yeah, that could be my laptop. This country is literally going off the rails. I really don't feel like there's anybody behind the wheel. And now we have a second huge emergency. Like I said, in the case of Texas, You couldn't stop the weather unless you created the weather. You couldn't stop the weather, but there was responses that could have happened. Like I said, those people should have been evacuated immediately. They should have been gotten out of there before that happened, knowing the situation. Or once it did happen, get people to safety so they don't freeze. You know, I didn't see any kind of effort. Now, everybody complained about Katrina. I saw effort during Katrina, even though, again, it was after the fact and too late. Because with those kind of things, and in all these cases, you need to do some planning ahead of time. But with Katrina, there was all kinds of coverage from the media, which, like I said, it was like a minute and a half that I watched on here, and then I just saw a couple more minutes on the Today Show now. But we're talking about what could happen. That means it hasn't happened yet. That means everybody and their mother ought to be down there fixing this shit before tomorrow's a nightmare situation. Now they're dumping it into, did they say they were dumping it into the ocean, and that's going to, why would you dump it in the ocean? They're dumping it into the ocean, which is going to cause algae blooms and red tide, which you don't want a radioactive area either. But how can everything go tits up all at once and the response is, oh, I don't know what to do, let's just dump it over here? That's how you get in this situation in the first place. And this is all happening. We're not, the rest of the country isn't completely opened up yet. Everything's still a mess. They're always talking about new waves. They're always talking about new, more cases and new variants and blah, blah, blah. This country is a nightmare. All these things, I mean, these things happen in ways to ruin the places that were supposed to be the last sanctuaries for freedom. Texas and Florida. I'm not in Texas or Florida. Like I said, I grew up afraid of thunder and lightning. These are two places I always said I'd never go. Okay? But to think that people were moving to these places to try to escape the evils that are going on with the government controls, and now magically horrible things are happening there, and the government doesn't seem to be doing anything worthwhile. This is a story that seems like it could go crazy all day. It could just burst open, you know. I hope it's being overstated. I hope it's not going to be as bad as they say, but you can't just dump stuff in the ocean. Why would you not just, like I said, fill the damn thing? Why is there no other chemicals to neutralize? Like I said, I've been saying that about the PCBs and stuff here that's contaminated so much of the groundwater and you know, the it is super fun sake. That is the word. I don't understand. It's not just a lack of leadership now. It's a lack of leadership forever. But you need your leaders to be able to kick into gear when there's a true crisis. And throughout this pandemic, we've seen babies who don't know what to do, who have to sit there and get a committee together, and they have to ask a bunch of people, and they have to see what some scientists say, and they have to see what some people over here say, and they have to probably find out from their lawyers most of all, because of libel and all this other junk. And that's all people are worried about, is getting sued, instead of saying to themselves, you know what, let me do the right thing, let me handle this, let me save people, let me stop this shit from happening, let me do whatever I can as fast as I can, and let the chips fall where they may later on. Where are those men? Where are those manly people, men or not, who have the moral fiber and the inner strength to say, there's a crisis, I'm going to handle it now. Let me do something now. And anybody wants to come and talk to me about it later on and say I did the wrong thing, fine. Where are those brave people who will take the responsibility on their shoulders and say, you know what? I got this. I'll handle it. Nobody knows anything. Everybody went to school for some stupid shit. Computer programming or real estate agents? Is that it? Nobody knows how to do anything anymore? It's probably a bunch of guys who worked in construction. Somebody sitting there watching TV, 70 years old, retired a long time, knows exactly what to do. And they're not asking them. Because this country thinks elderly people are disposable. Which is what this last year has been about, right? I'm just totally mystified when I watch the news, and just something else completely insane where you say, what? What do you mean a radioactive pond? Can you imagine you just living in your house and, oh, there's a radioactive pond up the street. You gotta leave now. You might come back and your house is radioactive. They're not even thinking like that. They're like, oh, if the people leave and they come back, their house may have like salty stuff. It's like, won't their house be radioactive? If it floods, if this thing breaks and it floods these places, won't they never be able to come home again? Not get their pictures or nothing because everything will be contaminated. Won't it be like Chernobyl? I mean, no, not as bad, but sort of. Contaminated is contaminated.